Welcome to another episode of r/Let's Not Meet. The blood-curdling scream that woke me up at 3 a.m. It was Christmas time. My wife and I were staying at her childhood home where her mother now lived all alone. Well, not if you include the cats. Meow. The house was on a quiet cul-de-sac in the suburbs. If you're picturing freshly mowed lawns, American flags, and empty sidewalks, you're picturing it right. It's a single-story home with an attached garage out front. The garage has two doorways, apart from the electric garage door, of course. One leads to the garden and backyard. This had an old doggy door from their days with dear old Max, R.I.P. Max, that they covered with a piece of nailed-in wood. That had always made me slightly uncomfortable before, but I figured it had been that way for years, so what's the worst that could happen? The second door leads to the kitchen. Hollow core. It could stop a mouse, but not much else. Definitely not something that wanted in, or someone. We were asleep in my wife's childhood bedroom at the front of the house. 3 a.m. I was in that deep, dark recess of sleep. You know, you're in the diving bell, and you're submerged hundreds of meters below the surface in black water, protected from the real world by miles of nothingness. Then I heard it. The scream. What are you doing? It was my mother-in-law's voice echoing down the hallway. To me, lost in a sea of sleep, it sounded like a jet engine roaring past my eardrum. I bolted up. What happened next happened in a matter of seconds. But about that scream, even though I was dead asleep, I heard enough of it to sense an urgency behind it. This wasn't an, "Oh, you scared me" type of scream. This was different, and I knew it, not consciously, but my lizard brain, that piece we retained from our primitive ancestors, knew something was wrong. I watch and read a fair amount of true crime, and this scream awakened that horrible fear, the one that says, this can't really be happening to me, can it? Honestly, in that second of the night, it sounded like someone was about to be murdered. You ever wonder if you're a fight or flight type of individual? I always have. And I came to know something about myself after this night. I'm a fighter. I leaped out of bed, growled, yes, growled, in the manliest voice I could muster, "I'm gonna kill you, mother ducker," and took off running. I tore open the bedroom door and ran into the hallway. There, at the end, I saw my mother-in-law, nightgown on, look of utter shock on her face, standing still. We make eye contact as I continue toward her. Then she turns her head, looks directly into the kitchen. I hurry past her and round the corner into the kitchen. The hollow core door is obliterated, shards everywhere. I look through the open frame and see the electric garage door is open. I push ahead. As I run into the garage, I hear it, the sound of someone hopping into a running car just out of view. Just as I make it onto the driveway, I see a car peeling out from the sidewalk adjacent to the house. But the adrenaline is still pumping, and who am I to say no to adrenaline? So, like an idiot, I run, barefoot, after the car. I give a good go, but I'm no Michael Johnson, and even he couldn't catch a speeding car. It soon vanishes down the street, and I'm left all alone. The police showed up within 3 minutes, which, I have to say, makes me feel a lot more at ease with my mother-in-law living there. They took our statements. My mother-in-law said she heard a noise, the hollow core door being kicked in, and walked into the kitchen where she encountered the burglar, a small framed woman. The police theorized she was working as part of a team. Her job was to squeeze through the doggy door, kick in the hollow core, and open the electric garage door for her accomplice. According to the police, the burglars most likely thought nobody was home. Fortunately, my mother-in-law must have caught her off guard and scared her, in addition to my manly growl, of course. But it feels good to know that everyone was safe, and to learn that I guess I've got a little fight in me. And, for the record, we bought the heaviest goddamn wooden door you've ever seen to replace that hollow core. I'd like to see a mouse try and get through that. Edit. I want to offer a heartfelt thanks to all of you for the incredible kindness you've shown for my family's well-being and for my writing. You didn't have to encourage this aspiring writer, but you did. So you have no one to blame but yourselves when more of my writing is foisted on the world. If anyone would like to see some of my work, feel free to DM me. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to practice your growls. My mother's abusive ex-boyfriend. When I was 12, there is an incident with my mother's boyfriend, who we will call Jason. Jason was a dong to me, but never said or did anything to my 2 sisters. I am the middle child. One night when mum gets ready to go partying with her friends, she asks Jason to watch me and my little sister. Big sister is fine since she can look after herself. As mum is getting ready, Jason puts on X Factor on the TV in the living room with little sis, and I am in the corner playing on the PC. I love solitaire. Little sis has her own snacks, and I have my own. I kept a stash since I saved up pocket money to buy myself some nice sweets and snacks. I kept them in a box under my bed. Little sister starts screaming when she is out of gummy bears and sees my bag is still half full. Jason tells me to share with her. I told him no, but he told me I should listen because I'm bigger than you. I'm stronger than you. Do what I say, or I punish you. I told him I saved up my pocket money. If little sis wanted more snacks, she should have saved up like me. Duck off, Jason. Jason then slaps me off the chair I'm sat on and pins me to the ground with his hands around my throat. My big sis walks in after hearing all the noise and runs up the stairs to call mum. I could barely breathe, but I managed to get a few kicks into his chest. As mum rushed in and pulled Jason's hands off my neck, I grabbed his left arm and bit a small chunk out of it. Jason goes to hit me before big sis jumps on his back and punches him in the back of the head, and mum is calling police. Mum took me to my room and gave me ice cream, but I still have nightmares about Jason to this day. It has been 14 years, and I'm still terrified. Creepy guy that followed me to 2 bars and tried to follow me home. I live downtown in a town in the Midwest. There's a lot of bars. There's a couple bars that I like to go to. I've been going to them for about 7 months now and I know almost all of the employees. I was already a little buzzed when I went out around 11:30 p. I wanted to see a good friend of mine who works second shift. Ended up hanging out for a bit, talking and drinking. I hadn't seen them in a while so we drank quite a bit more. I walked them home to their apartment and went to Bar B, which is across the street from their complex. I saw another friend there, ended up talking and we finished a half-drank pitcher of Miller. This is where creepy guy comes in. Now I'm already kind of drunk and I'm a pretty friendly person in bars when drunk. I'll wave to people, buy them a beer, talk and hang out. I mean, it is the culture in my state. He waves from across the bar. I put a song on Touch Tunes he must have liked. I wave back being friendly and the guy comes over to start talking to me. He asked if I go there often. I stated I'm a regular and for a while Bar A was my second home basically. My friend told me they were leaving, so I bade them good night and made sure they got their cab. I start to walk over to Bar A when creepy guy catches up to me and says he loves going to Bar A too. I shrugged it off at this point. We got to Bar A. I sat in one of my 3 spots and creepy guy sat next to me. I got up a couple minutes after he tried to make small talk and walked to the bathroom. When I was done, I sat away from him in a different spot, but he moved over to me. At that point I was pretty drunk. I got up and moved again. This time because I wanted to let my bartender friend clean the place I was sitting. It was getting close to bar time as well. I told the bartender that the guy was making me uncomfortable. He let me stay after closing to make sure creepy guy had left. When I walked out about 15 minutes later, creepy guy had waited for me. He asked if he could walk me home. I told him no politely. It was about a mile walk. I called up my boyfriend right after and told him queetled about what was going on. He told me to hurry home and keep him on the line. I told him the guy was still following me. I picked up my pace and he picked his pace. He called to me twice, asking if I wanted to be walked home and I told him that my boyfriend was on the phone and I would be fine. The last time he stopped me, he put his hand on my shoulder and I pulled out my pepper spray and told him if he didn't stop following me, I would spray him in a very firm tone. After that, the guy just ducked off somewhere else and I woke up in bed the next morning with a pounding hangover. So yeah, creepy guy at the bar. I hope we never meet again. I know you're a regular, so I'll make sure to have protection on and with me. Too long didn't read creep followed me between 2 bars and tried to follow me home. Ducked off after I threatened to pepper spray him. Edit. I meant between 2 bars, not to 2 bars. I was kidnapped as a child. I'm a girl. My mom was a horrible addict. She barely took care of me as a kid. At the time of this incident I was around 6 or 7, so my awareness and understanding of things happening may not totally make much sense. This happened in the 90s. One night my mother and I were on a car ride. I wasn't sure why we were driving, but it was late at night. I'm not sure what time it was, but I assume it was really late because there weren't many cars on the street and I was sleeping in the back seat. I don't even remember getting in the car. My mom drove up to some sketchy house and left me in the car for what felt like forever. Suddenly the car door swung open and someone violently grabbed me by my arm and yanked me out of the car. I started screaming and crying until the man that grabbed me looked in my eyes and said, "Be quiet and don't try to run or I'll kill you." He had a scruffy beard and looked like a madman. I was scared to death, so I listened. He held me tight by my arm, shut the car door, and walked with me down the street. I looked back at the house my mom was in, hoping that my mom would come out the last second and save me. I looked at the house as long as I could as the man dragged me further and further away. As we walked down the street I wanted to cry, but I was in shock and in fear. I didn't know what to do. If I sniffled or cried, the man would tighten his grip and yell at me. I can't even explain how scared and confused I was. We walked for a little while and ended up in the projects. The projects were a bunch of buildings crammed together in a shitty neighborhood. We walked into one of the buildings and walked up a flight of stairs. My legs and feet hurt like hell, but I was too scared to stop moving or complain. We walked up another flight of stairs when I saw some random guy smoking a cigarette in the stairway. Then without warning, the guy that kidnapped me fell to the ground. It happened so fast. I didn't know how the kidnapper fell to the ground so fast, but the next thing I remember is the cigarette guy was ouching and kicking the kidnapper in his head and face. The kidnapper was out cold. Cigarette guy picked up the kidnapper by the back of his jacket and threw him down the stairs. You have no idea how scary and violent it is to see an unconscious man fall down the stairs. To this day I still have a fear of falling downstairs. He bled everywhere. I still have no idea how cigarette guy knew to help me, but I'm glad he did. Maybe he could see tears in my eyes. Maybe he just picked up on something and had a bad vibe. But he acted instantly. The first second he could. He attacked my would-be kidnapper. Cigarette guy starts pacing back and forth, swearing at himself, gritting his teeth and clenching his fists. I thought he was mad at me, so I started to cry. He looked at me and said, okay, shut up. He had an attitude, so I listened to him out of fear. I wasn't as scared of cigarette guy as much as the bearded guy, but I was still in fear of him. He started to ask me questions with an attitude. Why are you out this late? Where are your parents? Why would you talk to strangers? I was in so much shock and confusion I couldn't answer the man's questions correctly. He asked if I knew my way home and I told him I didn't. I told him a broken story about what happened, and somehow with the information I gave him he knew where my mom's car was. The only thing I remember about the road is passing a house with Christmas lights on it despite Christmas already being over. I think he knew the area well enough and figured out where I needed to go from that information, but I honestly don't even remember telling him about the Christmas lights. Anyways, he told me he would take me back if I promised over and over that I wouldn't tell the police that I saw him or anyone that looked like him, and made me promise that I wouldn't even tell the police anything. He had an attitude. I didn't care what he asked me, I just wanted to go back to my mom, so I agreed. I followed him down the stairs. The bearded guy was still laying on the ground bleeding at the bottom of the stairs that cigarette guy threw him down. He wasn't moving at all. For all I know he was dead, and I hope now that he was. Cigarette guy stepped over the bearded guy and I followed. We walked outside and cigarette guy looked around panicky. I remember him telling me the police don't like me. We walked out of the projects and my feet still hurt. Cigarette guy was walking fast in a panic and I had to basically jog to keep up with him. I started crying and he asked what was wrong. I told him my feet hurt, and I remember him sucking his teeth and picking me up with an attitude. He awkwardly cradled me in both arms. He walked down the road for a moment. Then I remember him swearing and running behind a house or a building. A cop car was driving down the road. He put me down and told me to run to the police car. I tried to run, but my legs could barely move and I was scared. The cop car kept driving and rode away without seeing me before I could even get remotely close to it. He kept swearing to himself as he picked me up again and ran down the street. He took me behind a lot of houses and hid from every cop car that drove by. I assume now that the police were looking for me. He carried me in both arms running fast down the road when I saw my mom at her car in the distance. She was surrounded by police. Cigarette guy put me down and told me to run to the police. I got so excited the pain in my legs disappeared. He put me down and ran away. I ran towards the police and my mom. My mom picked me up and hugged me tight. The police started to ask me and my mom questions. I don't remember too much about their questions, but I remember my mom telling the police some convoluted story that just didn't make any sense. She basically told me to not say anything and I didn't say much but cried a whole bunch. We went home. Days later my dad picked me up and knew something was wrong. I told him everything. I never lived with my mom again. When I grew up and had time to think about that day, I never forgave my mother. Not too long ago I asked my dad what he remembers about the situation and he told me what he thinks happened from what I explained to him from years ago. He said my mom was on a drug binge. I got kidnapped. Someone saved me, but the person that saved me had warrants and wasn't mad at me. He was just frustrated with the situation that he had to deal with. Imagine being a criminal on the run and now you have a kidnapped girl with you and you just beat a guy up half to death. If he would have gotten caught with me, he could be in jail for my kidnapping. With my mom lying and me being in shock and confused, I wouldn't be able to tell them that the man helped me because while it was all happening I didn't even notice he was helping me. To the man that saved me, thanks. To the man that tried to kidnap me, let's not meet. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.